Hey everybody, we're back to go ahead and remove the display out of the mid frame of this phone. So basically what we need to do is go ahead and remove the ribbon cable here at the top that's holding this display in before we start to remove anything else. We're just going to take our nylon spudger, kind of pull up this little plastic rubber grommet here around the top. Go ahead and pull that back. That'll go ahead and remove for us. Then we can go ahead and pull back the ribbon cable that lays underneath the logic board. Just gently pull it back. Unless your display and LCD is completely shattered, then there's no point to rip this thing off. I'm just going to pull it back. So there's no adhesive that holds the LCD into the mid frame of the phone. Once it starts heating on the back side. Now if you need to, you can pop this little vibration module out. You don't have to. You can leave it in there if you want. Not that big of a deal. We have 6 screws around the outside of this device, which is a little unique to this particular phone. They're all Phillips screws, so we're going to go ahead and pop out all 6 of them. This is holding the display into the mid frame. Kind of keeps the curve without it trying to pull back out. We also have the screw underneath these cables. We're just going to pull them out of the little guides down the side of the phone. Go ahead and undo the screw that's underneath them. We have one down here at the bottom of the device, next to the charge port cable. One across from it, up here at the top, right above the charge port cable. Then one more in the middle. And then just one here at the top side for the last screw holding this in. Now with that done, we can actually take our pick here, and you can see you can kind of flex this phone a little bit. You get the screen to pop out. Now there's actually no adhesive that's holding this in down the sides of the phone. All the adhesive is actually at the top and bottom of the device. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and heat it up with a heat gun. We don't have to get it extremely hot. The goal here is just to loosen the double-sided adhesive that holds this into the mid frame. So once we get a little bit warm here, we want it warm to the touch. We don't want it to burn you. Now I found one of the easiest way to remove these displays with a suction cup. If you have a big enough piece where you can get a good fit on it, just go ahead and pull it back. Get the display to start to separate a little bit. Then you can take your pick in and move it down the side of the device here and just use this to cut the adhesive. Once that's done, you can go ahead and open it. Pull the top up here and go ahead and slide the cable out. Definitely not a hard screen to remove. Now you can see on the back of this flexible display there is a frame with 6 screw slots on it. We need to remove this as well off of the device. We're just going to use the same method we used to pull the screen off. Just use one of your tools to go ahead and just pry up underneath it. It has some double-sided adhesive underneath it that's holding on to the back of the display. Now it is pretty strong adhesive, and you may have to use just a little bit of heat to get it to pry off a little bit easier. You can do it with just a guitar pick and a pry tool, but the trick is you don't want to bend it too much. And every time you get near to one of the screw slots, it does get a little bit trickier to remove. So you can use a little bit of heat if you want to loosen that up and just make it a little bit easier. You want to keep the metal as straight as possible, so when you go to re-adhere it to the back of the display, it doesn't take a lot to bend it back into place. And you definitely don't want to break it, as these are not the easiest things to find. So just using our pick to go up the back of this display. See, the heat makes it a little bit easier to remove. Now normally you'll end up bending this a little bit, but just not enough to kink it. And be careful, you don't want to pull on it either. You want to use your tool to go ahead and remove it. Can get a little bit odd in places to remove because the display is curved. It can be hard to get a good angle at it with a flat pry tool. So it seems like Around the bottoms and the top, a nylon spudger works best, and on the sides a guitar pick works a little bit better. Let's try to get this top off of here. Use our spudger to get this off and get a nice straight go at it. Perfect. Now we can go ahead and just take that off. You can see that we'll have to clean this adhesive off the back side of it here. It has this double-sided adhesive. We're just going to kind of bend it back into the shape that we want it to be. Nice and flat. Now once you get it back, you can just go ahead and use some isopropyl alcohol. We're just going to go ahead and put it right directly onto the adhesive here. And we're going to let it set for a little bit. Usually give it a good half an hour. So you want to drench it in there, get it nice and soaked into this 3M. It's almost like a fabric adhesive on this one. It'll make it a lot easier to remove. Then we're going to take a sharp tool like a razor blade and use this to go ahead and scrape this off. And this will make the removal process much easier than trying to scrape it off dry. So let's work our way around the display and get all of this adhesive off. We'll have to re-adhere this back to the new screen. When you get to the screw holes, there's a little kind of a rivet looking thing on the back side of this, so it can be a little tricky to get started around it. Just remove as much as possible. Doesn't have to be exactly perfect. Just work your way around the back of this frame. Now once you have the back nice and cleaned off, the next step is to go ahead and take some double-sided tape. It doesn't have to be this VHB tape. It can be some 3M double-sided adhesive as well. And we're going to go ahead and tape the back of this so we can put it back onto the new display that we have. So we're going to go ahead and just cut this tape to fit and work our way down the back side of the device. This is really why you want it to be nice and clean. You don't want there to be any ridges or any gaps or anything that when you put this tape down. You just want it to look nice and smooth. So it'll sit nice on the device. You don't get any weird spots on the opposite side of the LCD. You actually don't have to cut free of these screw holes. You can lie in just put it down in one big line all the way down the back side of this. You want to get as much adhesive on here as possible. So just work your way around the entire side of the display. I believe I used some 2mm tape here. It could be 3mm width tape. Either will work. The goal is just to get this to re-adhere to the back of the new display. Alright, now once you have the back completely taped, what we're going to do is just kind of lay it on top of this other display here and use this as a guide to figure out how we can adhere this to the new display. Let's put them next to each other. Just go ahead and put it on the back and line it up. Peel this one back as we'll get ready to put the new piece on. Now this is where it can get a little bit tricky. You need to make sure that this little metal frame is lined up almost perfect on the back of the display. If not, once you adhere the display into the frame of the phone, the screw holes are not going to line up, it's not going to fit right, it's going to be trying to pull itself off. So I use a little marker here to mark where this needs to go on the new display. So line up the top and the bottom. Make sure the frame is put onto the back of this one nice, the way it came off. And then use a marker or something just to give little tiny marks on the back of the display. Now you really only need to line up the two of them, because once you get those lined up, all the rest of the screws will line up in place. So now we're ready to go ahead and take all the tape backing off and lay this down onto the device. Alright, we're just removing all the backing off the tape. And once you get all the backing off, you can go ahead and get it lined up to be pressed back down onto the back of this display here. So just be nice and careful as you do this. You want it to be almost perfect. You want to get it to as close to perfection as possible. Work your way down the sides and the bottom here. Perfect. Now your frame is adhered to the back of the display. Now make sure that's put down nice and snug. And the next step we need to do is actually clean off all this tape residue off the back of this mid frame as well. Now you can use some isopropyl alcohol to loosen this up. It's a little bit easier than the actual frame itself. It uses a kind of a different tape. So just use a metal spudger or something you can use to kind of pull up and just pull all this tape out. You want to remove all of the adhesive that's stuck to the back of this mid frame here. It seems easiest to use a nylon spudger, or if you have a metal pick like this one, that will make it a little bit easier to go ahead and pull back off and remove. You want to clean this out the top and the bottom of the mid-frame, as we're going to be putting tape back down onto the device. So now once you have all of this double-sided adhesive removed from the mid-frame, we are going to go ahead and put down some more double-sided adhesive, the same stuff we used on the back side of the display to adhere that frame down, to go ahead and put it back exactly in the places we just removed it. Now we want to make sure we don't cover any of the holes on the back of this device, anything for the front-facing camera, any of the ribbon cables are going to go through. And I find it nice and easy to kind of angle the tape that you're putting down to meet the mid-frame. So kind of cut it to fit. You don't want to make sure that it lays nice and flat. You don't want anything to go up the edges of the display or the mid-frame of the device. So take your time and make sure this is cut properly. You can cut it at an angle to fit these round grooves down here at the bottom and the top. Alright, so we've got the bottom tape. We're just putting the last little tape here on the top of the phone, making sure we don't mess up any of the camera port, any of the speaker portions, anything that would need to make sure there's no tape covering it. We can go ahead and remove all the backing off the tape on the mid-frame of the phone. Just using a sharp tool to go ahead and pull that off, just like we did for the metal frame you put on the back of the display. Make sure all of this backing is removed off the top of the display as well. Now we can take our glass here, make sure any plastic backing is removed off of it before you lay it down. We're going to take our ribbon cable and slide it in through the slot here at the top of the display. We're going to line up the corners here at the top. Make sure that the speaker grill portion is lined up. And we're going to work our way down. Now this is where your perfection on the back of that mid-frame with the screw housing is going to come into play. You need it to snap back into place perfectly. You may have to wiggle it around a little bit to get it to fit. So make sure that the holes line up on the back here. So you can put the screws back in to hold this device back into place. Now sometimes you can kind of flex it a little bit to get them to pop back into the right spot. But you really want them to be almost a perfect fit. That way there's no gapping around the sides of the phone at all. Once that's done, you can go ahead and put the 6 screws back into the back of the device. Now you want these screws to go back in to be nice and tight. But you don't want to over tighten them. You don't want there to be any issues with the display once you reassemble it. So put them in nice and snug, but don't over crank them down. Make sure you get all 6 into the correct slots. And this will hold the display in its curved shape to the phone. And that is the removal and replacement of the G-Flex display. If you have any questions, throw them down in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them for you. If you found the video helpful, go ahead and hit the like button. I'd appreciate it. And if you want to see future repair videos, go ahead and subscribe. If you want to watch the reassembly portion of this series, it'll be down in the description. Click on that link, it'll take you right to the video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.